A hospital room falls silent, where one life is about to slip away. A police officer lies motionless, her heartbeat nearly gone. Beside her, a German shepherd stands still, refusing to let anyone come close. People call it instinct, call it grief. But one man steps forward, not by chance, but by something deeper. A former Navy SEAL with a past that recognizes what others cannot. And when the dog finally reacts, everything changes. Before we begin, please like and follow to support us. Thank you. A cold rain whispered against the hospital windows, each drop slow and deliberate, as if time itself had chosen to hesitate before something irreversible. Inside the emergency trauma room, silence pressed heavily against every surface. Machines flickered with weak, inconsistent signals, their rhythms uncertain, like a heartbeat struggling to remember its purpose. On the gurney lay a woman in her early 30s, a police officer. Her name was Emily Carter. She had the lean, disciplined frame of someone who had trained her body to endure long nights and harder truths. Her chestnut brown hair, once tightly secured in regulation precision, now clung loosely around her pale face. Her lips had lost color. Her skin carried the stillness of someone the world had almost let go. Beside her stood a German shepherd. He was large, muscular, built not for display, but for function. 6 years old in his prime, his black and tan coat darkened by rain and streaked with dirt from whatever road had brought them here. His ears were erect, unwavering. His amber eyes, sharp, calculating, did not blink unnecessarily. He did not bark. He did not pace. He stood directly between the woman and the rest of the world, his body forming a quiet but absolute barrier. Anyone who stepped closer, he stopped them. A young orderly had tried. The sleeve of his uniform now hung torn, his hand still trembling as he stood against the wall, learning too late the difference between a frightened animal and a trained one. 2 police officers lingered near the doorway, unsure whether to intervene or retreat. Somewhere outside, unseen but present, a sniper had already been positioned. The situation had moved beyond protocol. Inside, no one breathed too loudly. "Time of death," a doctor began, his voice low, controlled, already preparing to accept what the machine suggested. "Not yet," came another voice, but it wasn't loud enough to interrupt. At the far end of the corridor, a man had stopped walking. Ryan Carter stood there for a moment, observing. At 35, he carried the kind of physical presence that did not rely on movement. Tall, broad-shouldered, his long-sleeved green tactical shirt with camouflage sleeves fit close to a body, shaped by years of discipline rather than vanity. His pants, worn but functional, bore the quiet marks of use, and his old military boots carried the weight of places no one here would ever ask about. His dark brown hair was cut short in a precise military style, and a light stubble traced his sharp jawline. His eyes, steady, measured, held something deeper than calm. They held control, the kind forged not in comfort, but in necessity. Once he had been a Navy SEAL. Now he was hospital security. He stepped forward. No rush, no hesitation, just intention. The moment he entered the room, the dog turned. Everything tightened. The air shifted in a way that did not require explanation. The doctors froze. The officers straightened. Even the machines seemed to quiet, as if sensing the fragile edge between order and chaos. Ryan stopped a few feet away. He did not look directly into the dog's eyes. Instead, he observed shoulders, stance, breath, the language that lived beneath instinct. "Guarding her 6, he said softly. The dog did not move, not a step, not a blink, but something flickered behind the eyes. Ryan felt the line, thin, sharp, one wrong move, and it would snap. He lowered himself slightly, easing the tension from his posture without retreating. His breathing slowed, deliberate, controlled, matching a rhythm the dog could understand without being told. Still, the dog did not yield, so Ryan did something else. Slowly, he reached up and pulled the collar of his shirt aside. The fabric shifted just enough, and beneath it, ink emerged. A broken spear, a streak of lightning, and the unmistakable imprint of a K9 insignia, not decorative, not symbolic, a mark of something that had never been meant to exist in public records. The dog froze, not startled, recognizing. Ryan lowered himself to one knee. "Stand down, soldier," he said quietly. Time stretched. No one moved. No one dared. Then, the dog stepped forward. Once, twice. His posture changed. Not weaker, not submissive, but different. The edge softened, replaced by something older than command. Recognition. He closed the distance and pressed his head gently against Ryan's shoulder. A quiet sound escaped him. Not fear. Relief. Behind them, the room breathed again. "Go," Ryan said calmly. The doctors moved immediately, hands returning to motion, voices rising with urgency as they worked against the clock that had almost run out. Ryan stepped aside, but he did not leave. The dog remained close, still angled protectively toward the woman. Seconds passed. Then, the dog barked. Once, sharp, controlled, different. Ryan's head snapped toward the bed. "Check her again." "She's gone," the doctor insisted, though his voice wavered. Ryan didn't raise his voice. "Check again." There was something in his tone that refused argument. The stethoscope pressed against her chest. Silence. Longer this time. Heavy. Unforgiving. And then, thump. So faint it almost didn't exist. But it did. The doctor's eyes widened. She has a pulse." Movement erupted. Orders. Hands. Machines coming alive again. But Ryan wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the dog, because the dog had already turned away from the bed, its gaze fixed on something else, something unseen, toward the door, and low in its throat. A growl began. Morning arrived without ceremony, a thin gray light slipping through the hospital windows, touching everything, but warming nothing. The storm had passed, but something else had taken its place, quieter, heavier, harder to name. Emily Carter was still alive. That alone had changed the rhythm of the building, not loudly, not in celebration, but in the way people moved just a little slower, spoke just a little softer, as if unsure whether hope was something fragile they might accidentally break. Inside the ICU, machines now held a steady cadence, no longer fighting for a signal, but maintaining one. Her body remained still, her breathing assisted, but no longer desperate. The color had not fully returned to her skin, but the absence of death was unmistakable. At the foot of her bed, the German Shepherd had not moved far. He lay down now, but not in rest. His body was angled toward the door, front paws extended, head lifted just enough to observe everything without seeming to. His name had been confirmed through the police unit. Titan. 6 years old. Active duty K9, trained for detection, pursuit, and protection. His coat had been cleaned, though the faint shadow of what he had endured clung beneath the surface. His eyes remained sharp, alive, and aware. He had not eaten, not once. "He's going to collapse if he keeps this up," said Dr. Leonard Hayes, a man in his early 60s with thinning silver hair and a careful, methodical demeanor, shaped by decades in emergency medicine. His face carried the quiet fatigue of someone who had seen too many outcomes to be surprised by any of them. Yet even he found himself glancing more often than usual at the dog. Ryan Carter stood near the window, arms relaxed, posture still. He had not left since the night before. "He won't collapse," Ryan said quietly. "Not yet." Dr. Hayes adjusted his glasses. "You sound certain." Ryan's gaze shifted briefly to Titan, then back to the glass reflection of the room. He has a job. That word lingered. Job. Not instinct. Not emotion. Purpose. Across the room, a nurse adjusted the IV line with cautious precision. Her name was Angela Reeves, late 30s, medium height, dark skin, hair pulled into a tight bun. There was a steadiness in her movements that came from years of working in controlled chaos. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. But even she kept her distance from Titan, respecting the invisible boundary he maintained. "Vitals are holding," she said, more to the room than to anyone in particular. Ryan nodded once. Titan's ears twitched, not at her voice, at something else. Ryan noticed. He always did. The shift was subtle, barely perceptible to anyone without training. A tightening in the dog's shoulders, a slight repositioning of weight. The kind of movement that meant attention had moved from internal to external. Ryan stepped closer, not toward the bed, toward the space between Titan and the door. Titan did not object. That alone said enough. Ryan's eyes moved to the door. Closed. Quiet. Nothing visible, but something present. Behind him, Dr. Hayes spoke again. "She may regain consciousness within the next few hours. Brain activity is improving." Ryan didn't turn. Good. But his voice carried no relief, because Titan was not relaxing. If anything, he was waiting. Time passed in quiet increments. Minutes folded into one another, marked only by the steady beeping of monitors and the distant sounds of a hospital continuing its endless routine. Then, Emily moved. Not dramatically, not enough to call out, but enough. Her fingers shifted against the sheet, a small fragile movement that might have gone unnoticed if not for the way Titan's head lifted instantly. Ryan turned. He stepped closer to the bed now, careful, measured. "Emily," he said softly. Her eyelids fluttered, slowly, as if each movement had to fight through something heavy and unseen. Then, they opened, not fully, but enough to see. Her gaze moved first to Titan, recognition, then to Ryan. Confusion flickered, followed by something sharper, memory. "This wasn't," she whispered, her voice barely audible, dry and broken from disuse. Ryan leaned slightly closer, his expression steady but attentive. "Take your time." Her breathing hitched. "Not an accident." The words fell into the room like something fragile and dangerous at the same time. Angela paused her work. Dr. Hayes looked up. Ryan didn't react outwardly, but inside, the line had been drawn. "I know," he said quietly. Emily's eyes searched his face, as if trying to measure whether he truly understood the weight of what she was saying. She swallowed, the effort visible, wanted me gone. Titan let out a low sound. Not a growl, not yet, but close. Ryan's eyes shifted, not to Emily, to Titan, because Titan was no longer watching her. He was watching the door, again, always the door. Ryan straightened slightly. His breathing slowed. His posture changed. Not defensive, not aggressive, but ready. The kind of readiness that did not announce itself. It simply existed. He moved a fraction closer to the center of the room, positioning, without drawing attention. Angela noticed. She followed his gaze. "There's no one there," she said quietly. Ryan didn't answer, because Titan had already decided. The dog rose to his feet, slowly, every muscle engaged, every sense focused. The room shifted with him. The silence deepened. And in that silence, Ryan understood something that the others did not. This wasn't over, not even close. He wasn't guarding Emily anymore. He was guarding the moment before something happened. By late afternoon, the hospital had settled into that deceptive quiet that comes after crisis, when everything appears under control, but something unseen, continues to move beneath it. Inside the ICU, the light had shifted from gray to a dull gold, stretching shadows across the floor in long, silent lines. Emily Carter remained fragile, but present, her breathing steadier, her awareness flickering in and out like a signal not yet fully restored. The effort of speaking earlier had drained her, leaving her body still once more, but not lifeless. Never that again. Titan hadn't changed position. He stood now, not lying, not resting, standing. His body angled between the bed and the door, his weight slightly forward, ears rigid, eyes locked. The stillness he held was no longer passive. It was anticipation, the kind that comes when instinct sharpens into certainty. Ryan Carter stood near the side of the room, his posture relaxed in appearance only. His hands rested loosely near his belt, but his eyes moved constantly. Door, hallway reflection, ceiling camera, back to the door again. He had learned long ago that danger rarely announces itself loudly. It arrives in small, almost invisible shifts, and Titan had already seen one. The handle of the ICU door moved, just slightly. No knock, no hesitation. The door opened. A man stepped in. He looked appropriate. That was the first problem. Mid-40s, tall, lean build, wearing a dark tailored suit that fit precisely enough to suggest money, but not vanity. His hair was neatly combed, dark with a faint touch of gray at the edges. His face was clean-shaven, his features composed, his expression neutral in the way practiced men often are when they expect to be observed. In his hand, he held a thin leather folder. "Apologies," he said smoothly, his voice controlled, measured. "I was told she was awake." His eyes moved briefly toward Emily, then paused. Not long, but long enough. Ryan saw it. The calculation. Not concern. Not relief. Assessment. Titan's reaction was immediate. A low growl formed deep in his chest, not loud, but unmistakable. His body tightened, muscles coiling beneath his fur, his stance lowering just enough to prepare. The man noticed. He smiled faintly. "Impressive animal," he said, glancing at Ryan. "Yours?" "No," Ryan replied calmly. The man nodded as if that confirmed something. "I'm here on behalf of Internal Review," he continued, lifting the folder slightly. "There are questions regarding the incident involving Officer Carter. I was asked to." "Stop," Ryan said, not loud, not aggressive, but final. The man paused, only for a moment. But again, enough. Ryan stepped forward, positioning himself slightly off-center between the man and the bed, not blocking completely, not escalating, just adjusting the geometry of the room. "Put the folder down," Ryan said. The man's smile did not disappear, but it changed, subtly. "I'm authorized to be here." "I didn't ask that," Ryan replied. Silence stretched. Behind Ryan, Titan's growl deepened, no longer hidden. His eyes never left the man's hands, always the hands. The man sighed softly, as if inconvenienced rather than challenged. "You're overstepping," he said. Ryan didn't respond. He was watching the right shoulder, the tension there, the slight imbalance in posture, a concealed motion waiting to happen. "Show me your hands," Ryan said. Now the smile faded. "Just enough." "Is that necessary?" Ryan didn't blink. "Yes." A single second passed. Then, the man moved, fast, not toward the folder, toward his jacket. Ryan didn't shout. He didn't need to. "Down." The word cut through the room like something already decided. Titan launched. No hesitation. No warning. The distance vanished instantly as the dog collided with the man's upper body, driving him backward before his hand could fully emerge. The impact slammed him into the edge of a metal tray, sending instruments clattering to the floor in a sharp burst of noise. Something fell from his hand. A syringe. It hit the ground and rolled, stopping just short of Ryan's boot. The man shouted, trying to twist free, but Titan had already locked onto his arm. Not tearing, not chaotic, but controlled with surgical precision. Pressure, immobilization, total dominance. Ryan stepped forward, kicking the syringe farther away. "Hold," he said. Titan adjusted instantly, maintaining grip without escalating. Security rushed in seconds later, voices rising, boots pounding, hands grabbing, restraining, pulling the man away as he struggled, less composed now, less perfect. The room fractured into motion, but Ryan didn't follow it. He turned. Back to the bed. Emily's eyes were open again, not wide, not strong, but aware. She had seen enough. Her lips parted, her voice barely a breath. "I told you." Ryan stepped closer. "I know." Behind him, the man was forced to his knees, his calm gone now, replaced by something colder, sharper, exposed. Titan released only when commanded, stepping back immediately, returning to position near the bed, his body once again forming that silent barrier. But this time, everyone in the room understood. He hadn't been protecting her from panic. He had been protecting her from something real. Ryan looked once more at the syringe on the floor, then at the man, then back at Titan. The dog didn't move, didn't relax, didn't celebrate. He simply stood there, watching, as if he had known all along. This was coming. Night returned without warning, slipping through the hospital like a shadow that knew the building better than the people inside it. The chaos from earlier had settled, but not into peace, into something heavier, quieter, more dangerous. The man in the suit was gone from the ICU, taken, questioned, contained, but not resolved. Inside a secured conference room 2 floors above, Detective Sarah Whitman stood at the center of a table scattered with files that had not officially been opened. She was a woman shaped by restraint, early 40s, tall and lean, her ash-brown hair pulled into a low bun that never loosened, her pale skin catching the harsh overhead light in a way that made her appear almost carved from something colder than flesh. Her eyes did not wander. They fixed, held, and extracted. Across from her sat the man, no longer composed, no longer polished. His jacket had been removed, his shirt slightly wrinkled. The perfection had cracked, revealing something less refined beneath. A man who had built his life on control, now forced to exist without it. "You weren't here to ask questions," Sarah said quietly. He didn't answer. She leaned forward slightly, placing a photograph on the table. The syringe. "You came to finish something." Silence. But not empty silence. Resistance. Ryan Carter stood near the wall, arms crossed, watching. Not the man's face, but the small things. The tightening of fingers. The shift of breath. The hesitation between words that never came. Men like this didn't talk when pressured. They talked when something slipped. Sarah changed approach. "You're not the beginning of this," she said. "You're not important enough to be." That landed. Not visibly, but enough. The man's jaw tightened. A small crack. Ryan saw it. Sarah saw it. "You were sent," she continued, her voice steady, "which means someone higher made a decision, someone who believes they won't be touched." The man exhaled slowly, then, a faint smile. "You're late," he said. The room stilled. Sarah didn't blink. "For what?" "For understanding," he replied. Ryan stepped forward slightly. "Then help us understand." The man turned his head, looking at Ryan directly now. There was something new in his eyes. Not fear. Recognition. "You already do," he said softly. "That's why you're still here." Ryan didn't respond, but inside, something aligned. This wasn't random. This wasn't cleanup. This was containment. Upstairs in the ICU, Emily Carter lay still but conscious, her breathing steadier now, her mind fighting its way back into clarity. The room had been cleared of unnecessary personnel. Only essential staff remained. And Titan. Always Titan. He stood closer to the bed now, no longer stretched between space, but anchored beside her, his presence quieter, but no less absolute. His coat caught the dim light, black and tan blending into shadow and gold. His eyes were calmer, but not relaxed. Not yet. Ryan entered the room again. He moved slower this time. Not cautious. Respectful. Emily's eyes opened when he approached. Fully now. Not strong, but present. "You stopped him," she said, her voice thin but clearer than before. Ryan nodded once. "You warned me." Her lips pressed together slightly, as if holding something heavier than pain. "They won't stop," she said. Ryan didn't interrupt. "They can't," she continued. "Not after what I found." Titan shifted slightly. Closer. Ryan pulled a chair beside the bed, sitting down, not as a guard now, but as someone listening. "What did you find?" he asked. Emily's eyes moved toward the ceiling for a moment, gathering strength, memory, courage. "Internal transfers," she said slowly. "Money, cases, evidence that disappeared." Ryan's expression remained neutral, but the pattern was clear. "Names?" he asked. She nodded faintly. "I copied everything," she said, "before they knew." "Where is it?" A pause. Not hesitation. Calculation. Then, "With me." Ryan's gaze sharpened. "How?" Emily let out a weak breath. "They never checked," she whispered. Her hand shifted slightly under the blanket, not enough to reveal, but enough to suggest. Ryan leaned back slowly, understanding settling in. This wasn't about stopping a witness. It was about recovering something. Something she still had. Titan's head lifted suddenly. Not alarmed. Alert. Ryan turned. The door remained closed. The hallway quiet. But Titan wasn't watching the door anymore. He was watching the ceiling camera. Ryan followed his gaze. The small red light blinked. Then, stopped. A single moment. Brief. Almost nothing. But not nothing. Ryan stood. "Stay with her," he said quietly. Titan didn't move. Didn't need to. Ryan stepped out into the hallway, his eyes scanning upward. Because whatever had been buried was still watching. Spring arrived quietly. Not with celebration, but with a slow, patient thaw that softened the edges of everything it touched. The city no longer held the same tension it once did, though traces of it lingered in memory, in headlines, in the way people spoke a little more carefully about things that used to remain hidden. The hospital had returned to its routine, or something close to it. The investigation had not been loud. There were no dramatic announcements, no public unraveling in a single moment. Instead, it moved the way truth often does, through files reopened, signatures questioned, and decisions made in rooms where silence used to be mistaken for control. Names surfaced, positions shifted. Some people resigned before they were asked to explain. Others disappeared from roles they had once believed untouchable. Emily Carter walked again, slowly, deliberately, each step measured, not by weakness, but by recovery. The scars she carried were not all visible, but they had settled into her posture in subtle ways, her shoulders slightly tighter, her gaze more deliberate, her awareness sharpened. Her chestnut hair was shorter now, trimmed for practicality rather than appearance. She wore no uniform yet, but there was no mistaking what she had been, and what she still was. Beside her, Titan moved freely. No leash, no command, just presence. His coat had regained its natural sheen, black and tan catching the sunlight in quiet contrast. The tension that had once lived in every movement had softened, though not disappeared. His ears still reacted to distant sounds. His eyes still scanned unfamiliar spaces. But he no longer stood between Emily and the world. He walked with her. Ryan Carter stood a few yards away, adjusting a section of wooden fencing that had taken him 3 days to build. The land stretched wide around them, open and quiet, far from the sharp edges of the hospital corridors. It was a modest piece of property just outside the city, nothing remarkable at first glance. But it had become something else, a place without sirens, without orders, without the constant expectation of violence. Ryan worked in silence, his movements steady, deliberate. The same discipline that had once defined his past now shaped something simpler. His green tactical shirt remained unchanged, sleeves rolled slightly as he secured the final hinge into place. The wood beneath his hands was solid, reliable, predictable, a rare thing. "You built all this yourself?" Emily asked as she approached, her voice carrying a quiet strength that had returned over time. Ryan glanced up briefly. "Most of it." She nodded, taking in the space around them. There were kennels now, not large, not crowded, just enough. A few dogs moved within them, rescues mostly, some older, some injured, all of them watching with that same cautious curiosity that comes from learning how to trust again. Titan moved ahead of her, stopping near the open gate. He looked back once, then stepped through. Not to guard, just to explore. Emily watched him for a moment, something softening in her expression. "He's different," she said. Ryan leaned back slightly, resting his weight against the fence. "So are you." She let out a small breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Feels strange," she admitted, "not waiting for something to go wrong." Ryan nodded. "Give it time." They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't need to be filled. A light wind moved through the field, carrying the faint scent of grass and distant earth. Somewhere beyond the fence, a bird called out, its sound clear and uninterrupted. Titan lay down near the center of the yard, not at the edge, not between anything, just there. His head rested on his paws, eyes half closed but aware, his body no longer held in that constant state of readiness. Emily stepped closer to him, lowering herself carefully to sit beside him. Her hand moved instinctively to his neck, fingers pressing gently into his fur. "You don't have to anymore," she whispered. Titan didn't move, but something in his breathing changed. Ryan watched from a distance. For a long time, his life had been defined by what needed to be done, by what had to be watched, by what could not be allowed to happen. Overwatch. The word had once meant everything. Now, it meant something else. He walked toward them slowly, stopping just a few feet away. Emily looked up at him. There was no question in her expression, no uncertainty, just understanding. Ryan glanced down at Titan. The dog opened his eyes briefly, meeting Ryan's gaze. No command passed between them, no signal, nothing spoken. Ryan exhaled quietly. "Overwatch," he said, his voice calm, steady. Then he looked out across the open land. "Is over." The words did not fall heavily. They settled, like something that had finally found where it belonged. Titan closed his eyes again, not in vigilance, not in waiting, but in rest, and for the first time, nothing in the world required him to wake. Sometimes, miracles don't arrive as thunder or blazing light. Sometimes, they come quietly, through a heartbeat that refuses to stop, through a loyal soul that refuses to leave, through a moment when someone chooses to stand instead of walk away. Maybe that's how God works, not by changing the world all at once, but by placing courage in ordinary people and love in those who refuse to give up on each other. In our daily lives, we may never face what they faced in that hospital room. But we are given small moments every day to protect, to care, to notice when something feels wrong, and to act. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in goodness. Tell us where you're watching from, leave a comment, and subscribe to keep these stories alive. May God watch over you, guide your steps, and bring peace to your home tonight.